Hey guys, it's Tehi. We're gonna do Fractilis now. This boss is the single target encounter of the tier. It seems pretty straightforward. It's kind of giving me Sludge Fist vibes, which is awesome if it turns out to be that way. So the reason why it's giving me Sludge Fist vibes is it's talking about that there's two kinds of walls, a Crystal Nexus wall and a Void Infused Nexus wall. I don't really understand, based off the Wowhead boss ability article, how this is going to work. Like, what are these walls? Are they... I would hope the outside walls of the arena that we're trying to, like, break down to access the next area of the raid maybe? I'm not 100% sure. But to just get straight into the fight, there's this Crystal Nexus, which is a wall of entry that explodes upon impact and launches a Nexus Shrapnel. It doesn't say what exactly this impact is supposed to be. If we look at the Void Infused Nexus wall, it says that it's also a wall that explodes on impact. It launches a Nexus explosion and applies Void Infusion to whoever broke it. So it kind of makes me feel like the player forces the wall to break somehow. PTR is still down, so I can't get into the dungeon journal and actually get better information into what this is going to actually look like, or I don't know, any good information about how this is supposed to work. But essentially there's going to be two different kinds of walls that you have to break. I'm sure they're either there 100% of the time until you break them, or that they spawn and it's going to be pretty obvious, like, okay, that's the thing we have to break and we have to break it right now. So that's something that you're going to have to figure out on your own as you test out this boss. But going back to the Crystal Nexus, so this brown wall that I made, it launches a Nexus Shrapnel, which is launched at a certain location and does damage within 4 yards. It kind of sounds like Shadow Crash for Shadow Priest, which is just this little circle I made up here. So it doesn't say it's necessarily targeted at players. It kind of makes sense for the 6th boss of the raid tier that it might be just get out, just dodge it. Pretty simple. And I say it's like Shadow Crash because it sounds like it's a launched ability that, like, goes up in the air like a missile and then lands down. It doesn't, like, obviously give you Vampiric Touch or Shadow Word Pain or anything like that. Just get out. This Void Infused Nexus is the other wall, the purple wall that I made. This one launches Nexus Explosion and employs Void Infusion to whoever broke it. Now the problem is Nexus Explosion and Void Infusion in the Wowhead article do not exist. They mention them, but they don't have any links or saying what those abilities are. And I think yesterday on PTR, when I looked at it, I couldn't find them in the dungeon journal for this boss either. So I don't know if this is just a data mining issue or exactly what happened here. Even when I search these abilities on Wowhead, nothing's coming up. And the things that do come up are not specific to this boss. So you'll just have to see if the dungeon journal is updated for testing tomorrow and figure out what Nexus Explosion and Void Infusion are and figure out how to deal with them yourself. Probably debuffs like Nexus Explosion, if we go off what Null Explosion is, which is these debuffs down here at the bottom and in the center. It's just a circle that does damage, and it shares damage within players within 10 yards, and you want to share the damage. So you just get targeted, you get out of the raid, and people come soak. It doesn't sound like you actually have to get out of the raid. It sounds like if you're a melee gets targeted with this, you can actually stay hitting boss with everyone else, and you just help soak one another. But Void Infusion, there's nothing in this of the other boss abilities that gives me any sort of idea of what it's going to be. It sounds like maybe it's a dot. That makes the most sense, but that's really all I got. Anyway, so this Null Explosion that we just talked about, it gets triggered by a debuff that's Null Consumption, and it's a dot that goes on to random players that eventually causes Null Explosion. So you're going to get this dot. When it ends, it's going to put the circle on you, which is the shared circle damage circle that we just talked about that you need people to come help soak with you. Now we'll go to the next slide. Entropic Conjunction. The boss starts hitting the ground, starts slamming on the ground. It is AoE raid damage, and it starts an Entropic Shockwave. I assume, like, I'll put this aside for a second, that this is just like a wave, and you just have to, like, dodge it as a raid team. So just get out of the way. Seems pretty simple. Just don't get hit. That's about it. The other thing to keep in mind is the Shockwave Slam, which is the tank hit. Sounds like a pretty boring tank hit, to be honest. All it is once you get hit, it increases the damage by Shockwave Slam by 500% for the next 55 seconds and causes another entropic shockwave to occur. I don't know if that's multiple shockwaves or just one. It will probably be multiple because entropic shockwave, the ability itself says it's a sequence of shockwaves. And if you do get hit by it, it's a huge hit. A huge dot that gets left behind. It's like, according to Wowhead, it's like a 4 million dot that ticks every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. So that's incredibly dangerous. You don't want to get hit. If you do get hit, it's instantly pop a personal, pop an immunity, whatever you need, just survive. But yeah, so the Shockwave Slam. So it sounds like the tank swap is actually going to happen like every 30 plus seconds. Seems pretty boring. So as long as this is going to be a very boring tank fight, it's just really going to be survive this Shockwave Slam. Maybe the boss's melees absolutely truck it. Would not surprise me because he's a very, very large fella. But yeah. The last slide that I have is this Nether Crystallization. This seems like it's going to be the most difficult ability mechanic of the fight to deal with. It's a dot that goes on players, and after 8 seconds the dot ends, and it's going to give you the crystallized debuff. It sounds like it goes on players randomly. It's not targeted or anything. It's just like, hey, you get it, congratulations, go deal with this now. After 8 seconds, when you get the crystallized debuff, you are going to be rooted for 24 seconds. So the reason why this can be difficult is if we pair it with the shockwave mechanic, if you're rooted, you can get hit by the shockwave pretty dang easily. So pretty bad mechanical overlap there. So classes that can break roots, like druids, mages if they don't take shimmer, basically think of everything you did on Ansarek, Mythic Ansarek, to break those web roots. That's kind of like how you want to think about this mechanic. Additionally, there's an ability called Crystalline Backhand, which does damage to every single player in the raid, but it also does a knockback to anyone who's crystallized, which kind of reads weird because if they're rooted, they can still get knockback. That's a little weird. Maybe it's just a Wowhead error. This boss seems very simple, but there are some questions like how do these walls work? There's no ads, purely single target. So that's what I would tell you is figure out like how you're going to soak these things. Figure out these walls. How do they actually get broken? Who does the impact? Don't forget, Nexus Explosion and Void Infusion are the two abilities that Wowhead does not have any information on, so you may need to look into that yourself. The Shockwave, tank hit's pretty simple. Dodge the Shockwave if you get hit. Immunity, defensive, something like that. And then this Nether Crystallization is a big dot. After 8 seconds, you get crystallized, which means you get rooted for 24 seconds. Definitely freedoms, normal blinks, dispersion, shapeshift, etc. All of those things are incredibly important to help break that root. For Race to World First perspective, I can definitely think like this is one of those fights where you probably stack those classes that can break their own roots. Purely because if this Crystalline Backhand occurs, it's not the worst thing in the world, it's the Shockwave, because now you can't dodge the Shockwave, and that's incredibly punishing. So, Fractilis seems like a pretty straightforward boss. Hopefully it goes well. Play super defensive, single target fights, especially if I'm thinking it's going to be, hopefully it's very similar to Sludge Fist in terms of how the fight works and the tuning of it once it goes live. Sludge Fist was the 6th boss, and this is going to be the 6th boss. Lines up perfectly. Yeah, we have one more boss left to do tonight. That is going to be Nexus King Salhadar, and it sounds like it has the potential to be a banger as well. So, thanks guys. See you in the next one.